Hi, Don here. Welcome to Podiatry Practice Mastery, where we're helping you get your practice to the $1 million mark and beyond. Today, I want to talk a little bit about how I disconnect from work on vacation. I know this might sound like an obvious topic, but part of having great focus at work means to have great detachment when you're not at work. This is my opinion, and this is kind of what's been working for me in my life. So, for example, I do work hard, as you can see, because I kind of post what I see and what my patients, but I also disconnect very well. And this took me some time, and I learned a lot of these tips from something called Strategic Coach, where I go every quarter to kind of help work on my personal life and also on business. I find in the beginning it helped more with my personal life. So, for example, when I go home, I don't ever think about work. I don't work on work. I don't do anything with work. I don't check email. I don't do business things. I tend to, if anything, I'll do it earlier in the morning versus later at night or on the weekend. So weekends and nighttime is kind of a detachment time. Also, when I drive to work, that's kind of the time I do my business reading or business listening, and I like to listen to a few podcasts, certain things that kind of inspire me, give me newer ideas. I tend to look for people that are further ahead in business to kind of inspire me and teach me things. So that's how I use my kind of my driving time. I try to utilize wasted time to make it more beneficial. When I'm at work, I work hard. I tend to do all of my now we're getting a little into the weeds here, but all of my like personal business stuff, like my mail, mail processing, everything else like that, I have a backpack and I put everything in my backpack, and I tend to do it all at work, so I'm not distracted at home with all of my other types of business things. But most of my business stuff, it's for my personal life, is pretty limited. I tend to unsubscribe from everything. I tend to put everything else online, and most of my things are systematized. So I don't have to kind of think about it. Like all my things are on auto pay. I don't have to make any bill payments. Everything is automated, and I try to outsource as much as I can. So there's not much personal stuff I have to do. Now, in terms of my vacation, I just recently came back from Brazil, and I did not do any business stuff for the last like 12 days. I continued to be able to post my YouTube shorts, and I'll explain how I did that. I'm about a month ahead on my YouTube shorts, so I do one YouTube short a day, and I use an app where I record it on my phone, but it doesn't upload to my phone. It uploads to like I don't know, like an online cloud thing, and then I have a virtual assistant that puts in the subtitles and uploads that to YouTube Shorts, and then I use something else called repurpose.io that repurposes it to Facebook, now TikTok, Instagram, LinkedIn, and all these other things. So it's repurposing that one piece of content everywhere, and I tend to do it in the short format because it's easier to process, and I think people have less attention span. So it continues to post these things even though I wasn't working. In terms of travel time, I tend to use travel time as work time because it's kind of a waste of a day in my opinion. So I'll either listen to something that's inspiring, I will kind of a book on tape or a book on Audible. I'll read books. So the two books I like to share kind of what I'm listening to personally. There's a book called $100 Million Offers and $1 Million Leads. So I really like this gentleman. His name is Alex Hormozi, and he helps businesses get to the like a $10 million mark, and then he invests them as a venture capitalist. So I was reading those books again. So this is like the second or third time I'm reading these books, and I try to apply the ideas. And he really just breaks down things that if you can apply these for your practice, and a lot of my ideas come from him. And so I was listening to that. Another thing I was playing around with on my trip is I was playing around with I have the ChatGPT. I have the paid version, so I can do it on my phone. I was using something called Max AI, and I didn't like it as much. It gives me access to a lot of these other AI things, but for me, ChatGPT is really sufficient for what I need. It has folder system, so I was working currently on my trip. I was working on my it's called the irresistible offer, or my Grand Slam offer that Alex Hormozi talks about. And so I was kind of working on that, and it has a little chat bot that has his name. So if you search under ChatGPT, you look at his name, Alex Hormozi, and there's like a free chat bot. And so it takes all the content from his books and his videos, and it has it in there that you can kind of chat with and ask questions and develop content and resources and things like that. So I found that was very fun. So I don't know if these are more like distractions for me, or these are like just things I like to do in when I'm having buffer days. So buffer days are times where I'm not producing revenue, but I'm kind of working on my business. I don't have a lot of buffer time, so most days I'm seeing patients all the time. So those are called focus days. These are these ideas from Strategic Coach. So focus days, I'm working on producing revenue, and then buffer time is time where I'm working on the business. I don't have a lot of time on the business. Most of it is done with my office manager and with the kind of our leadership team as the doctors, which we do in our Tuesday morning meetings. But then I was able to work on that, and I usually, when I'm traveling, I'm also working on my newsletters. I'm a little bit further ahead of my newsletters, and that's what I use my kind of my travel time to work on those newsletters as well, that I still do. So newsletters. And so it was a good trip. We went, like I said, to Brazil. So the travel time was 1 day. The nice thing is there was like no business. There was no internet. There was internet access, but there was no phone calls, no email, nothing like that. We traveled around. We went to a little church Bible camp for the first 3 or 4 days, which was a great time for the kids. My kids now are at the time of this recording, they're 9 and 11, so it was a nice time for them to kind of be away. We enjoyed that time up in the mountains in Brazil, in Espírito Santo. And then we came down from there, and we went to visit my in-laws. And so I drove a car in Brazil. So it's kind of crazy driving there. Everything is like one lane each way, and so you have to pass these big eucalyptus carrying double long trailers. So it's a little bit dangerous that way, but it was a nice time there. Ate way too much, but another thing, if you've heard me talk about this, I usually do 1 meal a day in terms of intermittent fasting, Monday through Friday. But when I'm on vacation, I don't do that, so I ate a whole bunch, had a nice time. It was a fun time with the family. Visited my in-laws, visited my wife's cousins and friends, and we went to church, and we just had a really nice time of rest and rejuvenation. And I got a little bored, which was kind of nice. And now I'm back kind of on fire to work on things. So I just want to also explain that, like, you are able to produce revenue really, really well in your practice, but you have to have time off. You have to have time to like decompress, to think about other things, to not think about business. And I think that's a real important part. I think when I first got into this, I thought I had to do business all the time. And now I find that this rest and rejuvenation can really help me come back better, kind of excited and motivated. And the nice thing is I have a good leadership team with my office manager and staff, so I was not distracted at all, and I didn't have to take care of anything on when I was traveling. So anyway, hope you guys find that beneficial. I am going to be starting a small group challenge for people's practices. So if you want to learn more about that, go to podiatrypracticemastery.com/challenge. That's for the next thing we're doing. Okay, have a great day.